Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne broadcasting live here from Brookhaven, right next to Buckhead in Atlanta, but Brookhaven is separate. We're over here with Billy Roberts. We've been at Mallory and Tyler and Chandler's, and we're going to work our way back to Memphis, to Parkin, to the tropical climate. But meantime, we got a lot of college football to talk about today. Hey, catch us 6 days a week, Sidelines, 50 hours a month of content, www.sidelines.live. And, of course, watch us live on our YouTube channel. If you miss it, if you're working, if you're in the pool, if you're running, always go back at sidelines.live and hear the show at your leisure. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your colleagues, your esteemed colleagues, and everybody. We talk college sports year-round. We get the best guests. We got a great lineup today. Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, Alabama Sports Writer of the Year, is checking in the first spot. Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger Air, over here in Jasper, north of Atlanta, is on with us this morning. Kevin Scarbinsky, award-winning sports writer, Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. The Birmingham Lede will check in the second segment. Doug Dean, also AU Dose Birmingham, will be on here in a little bit. Hour number 2, our good friend Buddy Martin comes back, GatorBaitMedia.com, down in Ocala, Florida. He texted me the other day and said, hey, I'm ready to come back. Will you have me? I said, absolutely. Whatever credibility we have, it's because we have great guests like Jason Caldwell, like Frank Duffy, who's a regular on here, and Buddy Martin, Doug Dean, Kevin Scarbinsky. We are here to serve. And so let's get started right away. I'm going to go ahead and bring Frank and Jason on into the fold here. And Jason, I'm over here, it's day 5 of Wimbledon. One of Billy's neighbors, they flew over for the weekend. That's a great thing about living in Atlanta, to go watch Wimbledon. We got tennis going on. We're about, 9 days from the start of SEC Media Days. But we need somebody that is calm and rational like you. You would be that number one candidate. We had a lot of people talking this week about Cam Coleman committing to Texas A&M. That kind of, I guess it caught people by surprise, but what is a surprise anymore? But kind of give us your take on that, and if you think that is over and where Auburn goes to next, because it sure is different when we talk about Auburn football and Auburn recruiting now with Hugh Freeze and this staff, because they're going after everybody.
Yeah, no, it's, first of all, it's not over with. It's a long time to December, and there's a lot of things that can happen between now and December. I think it, for some guys, and I've talked about it this whole time, for some guys, they probably want to see what this is going to look like. You've been told this is what we're going to do. Yeah. Auburn comes out and they throw the ball. They're exciting, pull off a win or two. Then not only Cam Coleman, I think there's a lot of other guys that it might open the door back to for them. But it's, you look at wide receiver and already have Bryce Kane committed. Yeah. Perry Thompson, who's a 5-star, is committed to Alabama. I think Auburn, I would put Auburn probably a little bit better than 50% for him right now. Then you have some other guys that are still in the mix. So, long time, still lots of options out there. But, I don't think that it's over for Cam Coleman by any stretch, especially nowadays with so many things. It used to be flips where this huge news. Now they're pretty regular, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that one change before it's all said and done. Yeah,
and for just put to rest before I go to Frank, people are saying, well, is Patrick Nix just mad? And I've asked you about that, and all I need to do is ask you or Mark Murphy or Bill Cameron, y'all are my mentor. And he said no. And you said the same thing. No. That Damian Craig is the recruiter for wide receivers, and he was a teammate of Patrick Nix. So they know each other. But it's Phoenix City Central. Is Auburn getting a better foot in the door over there? I mean, I lived in Columbus for several years, and I go over there a lot. Been there about 6 times the last couple of years. It's twice as big as it used to be. Phoenix City's not as big, but, man, that Central program. You and Mark said several years ago, at any time there's 25 or 30 D1 players on that roster. That's how good it is.
Yeah, no, they got lots of guys. And, the Auburn's lack of success at Central Phoenix City didn't start with Patrick Nix. And so that's your answer right there. If he was somebody that was upset or unhappy with the Auburn program, he would not have brought his entire team to 7-on-7 camp in June. He did. If anything, it's opened the door back up there. But he's also not somebody that's going to go, hey, this is where you should go. You let guys make their own decisions, and that's what you do. And so, he's good. Always been good. That's just not guy. The people hold grudges, but I think it gets blown way out of proportion when you think about coaches and doing those things. It just doesn't happen a whole lot. And so, no, it's a really good program. Auburn will continue to recruit that program. And like I said, they'll continue to recruit Cam Coleman because this one reminds me of Keldrick Falk last year. I thought, and I said Keldrick Falk the whole time, I said I thought he would wind up at Auburn, and he did. Cam Coleman's always a guy that I thought would wind up at Auburn. We'll see if that happens. It might not, but it has the same feel to me.
Yeah. Frank Duffy up there, and you after a 29-day odyssey in Omaha, you're back. Your thoughts on this stuff? Because you're in Atlanta, another area that Auburn and your LSU Tigers recruit heavily. Yep. There's just good players everywhere around here.
Well, first of all, my blood alcohol is now back to a normal level. I just want to let everybody know that my Jello tolerance is back into line. Hey, Jason, I do have a question for you. Has Hugh Freeze and the effort that he's made on the recruiting trail, has he bridged that gap from Potato Boy, from all the mess that Harsin got y'all in, from the lack of recruiting, the lack of attention to recruiting? Have you seen that gap close since he's been on the job for this past 6 months?
Yeah, no, there's no question. It's in a much better spot than it honestly than it has been in quite a few years. Gus Malzahn's doing a really good job at UCF right now, but he did not recruit that well at Auburn, in my opinion. He did in certain spots, but offensive line was still a huge issue. And that's a position that it takes, I don't know. And I me and Rob have talked about this for years, and, they signed more offensive linemen in this class between transfers and high schools than they did in 5 years combined previous. That's inexcusable.
The lack of focus on the line was really telling.
Well, they focused on, and it's kind of what I've talked about for a long time. If you want to sign 4 offensive linemen, you better seriously recruit 20 of them
easily,
because there's not that many. And this year I had to go back and look now, but I think there's only 1 5-star offensive lineman in the country. So it's not a great offensive line class. Even when it's a great offensive line class, most teams are looking to sign at least 3 or 4. Yeah. So when you start talking about in the SEC alone, you're going to talk about 50 plus offensive linemen just in this league. Then you start talking about the Big Ten. So how many of those guys are 4 and 5-star guys? Well, there's not that many of them. So you're going to have to take 3-star guys and develop them, do those things. Well, when you shoot for the moon, you're not going to get all those guys. And I think it's the same way. You have to recruit and you have to develop and trust yourself. Hey, if you want to be known as an evaluator, and that's what Ryan Harsin wants, I want to be known as an evaluator. Well, then okay, then offer that guy first. Why does it take you to December of his senior year to offer him? If you're the evaluator, offer him in June. You should know by then. And so that's part of the issue. Yeah. Hugh Freeze and this staff have been earlier. They've gone out and made guys a priority earlier that maybe weren't as highly recruited. A guy like Bryce Kane, for example, wide receiver in Mobile. That's a guy that the last 4 or 5 years would not have had an offer, wouldn't be committed at that time. They said, hey, we like this guy. He's a 3-star guy, but we trust what we see. And then all of a sudden, other schools became involved. And I think he's a guy that may wind up being a 4-star before it's over with because he's really good. So, yeah, it's in much better position. Still a long way to go because you're playing catch-up even in 25. Ryan Williams, those guys are already committed in the 25 class before they ever arrived on campus. So even then, you're still playing catch-up 2 years down the road. But, yeah, it's in a much better spot.
Jason, to Rob's pointed question about our battles here in Georgia, because LSU does come in here. We get a lot of talent out of Georgia, and so does Auburn. I mean, Auburn really probably feels that they have that claim on Columbus and on LaGrange and and that area, that Troup County area. I mean, that's an Auburn pipeline, always has been. So where do you see the battles here in Georgia, the recruiting battles with Hugh Freeze coming in? And of course, this behemoth that we've got over here in Georgia at Athens. I mean, Kirby has built an absolute, monolithic monster, 2 national championships under his belt. The evil empire, the Dark Lord is now maybe not residing in Tuscaloosa. He's a little bit further east. So we all got to have to compete against that. Where do you see the competitive battles for recruiting in the state of Georgia now having to go up against Kirby and his recruiting staff?
Yeah, the biggest difference is in the last 10 years is that for Auburn, normally the only battles in Georgia were Georgia and probably Florida State and South Georgia. That was the only people that really came to Georgia. Now Alabama has made Georgia a place that they recruit. LSU, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida, like everybody goes everywhere. Texas has a commitment from a 25 quarterback in Mobile. That's the difference now, is that those battles used to be 2 or 3 teams. Now it's 20 or 30 teams.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, is that now because of summer visits, because now kids, they go more places, they go see more things than ever before. And so, yeah, it used to be a 2 or 3 team battle for Auburn. If Auburn went in Georgia, seriously recruiting guys, there were probably only really 2 or 3 schools that you said, okay, that's probably Tennessee started. They were probably the next one. Yeah. It was probably Auburn, Tennessee, Florida State, and Georgia were really the schools in the state of Georgia then. Now it's different, and you're right, it's more difficult. But even it's reversed even in the state of Alabama. In the state of Alabama. And usually if a kid didn't go to Auburn, Alabama, then it was a smaller school.
Yeah.
Well, now you're seeing kids, Georgia's come into Alabama, LSU came in and got Jamarcus, which is a little different in the Mobile area.
Yeah.
But now you see Texas, and you've seen Stanford, and you've seen Florida, and you've seen other schools. Now everybody grabs, they might not necessarily recruit nationally, but there may be a kid or two that they say, hey, we got a shot at this guy, we're going to go recruit him. That's where it's different. But yeah, Georgia's always going to be a place. And I do think they've gone back in and made it more of a priority this year. So you look at, like Jalen Crawford at Parkview, for example. Some of those guys, there's guys that Auburn is in the mix with, a few offensive linemen in the state. So it's going to be a battleground state for Auburn in the future. No question about it. And it has to be, because for Auburn football to be successful, you got to get your fair share of guys from Alabama and Georgia to start with. If you don't win in those 2 states, it's over.
Well, I know one thing. We come in here and get our long snappers from Georgia. We've got 3 of them. Our last 3 long snappers are right from here, right over View.
Well, and here's a question, Jason. Historically, 48% of the time, if a stud player in Georgia doesn't sign with Georgia, he's going to Auburn or Clemson. That's the school, you didn't mention, but obviously, Florida State in the South part. Tennessee, when Rodney Garner left Auburn mid-January of '96, there were some guys in Georgia. I think Auburn was recruiting Jamal Lewis out of Southwest DeKalb in Decatur, Josie Grant out of Augusta, Cozy Coleman, Raynoch Thompson out of St. Aug down in New Orleans. There were a lot of players in Georgia, though, that they got. And now one school that I'm seeing showing up on the top 5 or 6 of a lot of the better recruits is Arkansas, because you got Marcus Woodson and you got Travis Williams, and they're up there in Arkansas. And Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, has talked to them, and they're like, we're coming down there. We know these areas. So just you're right. We're just adding more logs to the fire, and it's not getting any easier. You better be on your A game.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's like I said, it's everywhere, and it's the challenge, and it's why relationships are still very important, because in the end, NIL is going to be important, but you're not going 25 deep, and not my opinion. I don't think you're going 25 deep and paying guys $150,000. Sooner or later, relationships matter. It might matter for a couple of guys. But in the end, it's still about relationships, getting guys on campus, and doing those things. And that's why it's important.
Yeah. Well, when you look at it, and we got a couple of minutes before the break, but Jason's right on this relationship part. There are a handful of schools and there are a handful of student athletes that are getting the big money, Jason. And I don't think it's being publicized or whatever like that. But John Hartwell was on the show with us Thursday and said 97.3% of the NIL money is going to male athletes. So I reached out to Riley Gaines last night to see if she could come back on with us again, talk about that. But I know Livy Dunn at LSU got $500,000 for a social media post last week. I'll take that any day of the week. But Jason talked about these camps that have been going on. They're all over. Now it's focusing on the players. What are you hearing about the guys that have come in from high school that were there in January and the new guys at Auburn?
Yeah, I think been a pretty good summer for them so far, because you had guys that were already here on campus that went through spring practice, and then you have another group. Auburn, like a lot of teams around the country, wasn't done in December with the transfer portal, and you have a new wave of guys coming in. Obviously, the Peyton Thorne is the one that attracts the most attention there, quarterback from Michigan State. So I had a chance to see him throw a little bit. Had a chance to see him on the golf course one time when they had a break, and he has integrated himself very well to teammates, which is the first thing you look for a quarterback. That's the first thing you look for. And so the thing it's also done is it's pushed Robbie Ashford, Holden Garner, those guys, seeing them be more vocal out there around camps, helping out the coaches when they have high school camps going on, those kind of things. That's always a good sign. So I think it's a huge sign.
Hold that thought of yours, because I want to ask you a little bit about the quarterback. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers. Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger, and Tiger Air. Jason, he's got the air-conditioned helmets. We'll be right back. Hi, Jason, you were making some great points about that quarterback room. Holden Garinger, Robbie Ashford, Peyton Thorne coming out of, by the way, from Naperville, Illinois. My friend Brock Kreitz has been on the show with us a couple of times recently. Played football 93 to 97, starting linebacker at Ole Miss. That's what they call a cold beer up there, a road soda. Naperville. When you see Peyton Thorne, ask him if he's ever had a cold road soda, and he'll know what you're talking about. Because I never met him, but that quarterback room, there's legitimate competition there, Jason, isn't there?
There is. And you know, I don't think it's just going to be handed to Peyton Thorne. I think he's going to have to go out and earn it. But I think it's going to be a very fun few weeks in early August when they get out and have a chance to scrimmage, do some of those things, because I'm a guy, and you know me, I'm a guy that believes in Robbie Ashford's talent and competitive fire.
I do too.
I don't think this is going to be one where you just turn around and hand it over. I think he's going to go. I think both those guys are going to compete with Peyton Thorne. But I think it's going to make everybody better. And so that's the first spot. That's what you want out of a transfer portal. You say, okay, what's going to make us better as a team? And I think about it. I compare it to the NFL draft. After you get past the third round, you start going, okay, who's the best player left on the board? We may not need that guy, but if he's the best guy, you want to take him. Well, Auburn did that at wide receiver. They had some numbers at wide receiver. They're like, okay, this guy, he going to make us a better team? Well, let's go get him. And if that's what you have to do. And so they've done that. We'll see how things come together, because that's what you never know with transfers. Could it come together like TCU? Maybe. I don't know that you could go on the run quite like that, because you're playing in the SEC and have a little bit more competition in the regular season. Yeah. But it's not far-fetched to see an Auburn team that you go, could they get to 8 or 9 wins? Yeah, if things come together, they absolutely could get to 8 or 9 wins. I don't think that's a stretch at all, especially seeing the pieces that they added. But you just have to see if they can pull the strings and make the right choices and make a few plays here or there.
But Jason and Rob, we both saw it. I mean, I was sitting there with Doug Dean and Jordan Hare watching Robbie Ashford in that first half against LSU. You see his talents. He's got talent. I mean, the young man can sling it. He can sling a deep ball. He's quick with his feet. I don't think Harsin put him in a good position late in the first half of that game to throw that pick. That was not smart. They didn't help him out with that. I think the kid's got incredible upside potential. So, yeah, if Thorne comes in and takes the job, more power to him. But, Auburn knows what they've got in Ashford. They know the upside potential, what he brought in. I don't think he was developed well last year. Maybe Hugh Freeze can change that this year. But, he's got incredible upside potential. I witnessed it myself.
Yeah. Jason, interesting points. Doug Dean was on with us earlier, I think Wednesday. We took off last Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday for the 4th of July and went up fishing on the Spring River. And now we're here in Brookhaven, Atlanta. And but interesting point Doug made was the last 3 years, these recruits, they're looking at Auburn as a 17 and 19 program. And I think all it's going to take, you're right, and I say that's all. Let me qualify that statement. But if Hugh Freeze, and I was with some of Hugh Freeze's closest friends over the weekend that know him really well. And listen, he's gonna change the offense. And I think you're right. These kids are gonna go, okay, wait a minute. I was told Auburn was, running this, prehistoric offense, and now they're throwing the ball all over the field and doing all this stuff. It changes everything, especially for a kid that lives 30 minutes from campus. Columbus and Phoenix City, I used to drive it every night when I lived for my first 6 weeks in Auburn before I got moved into Columbus. It's about 35 minutes to that Columbus where I live. So it's really close. So I could see him potentially changing his mind.
Yeah, and you're talking about kind of the perception of a program. It's you look at it and you go, the last 3 years haven't been good, but you look and go, man, just a little bit, and you beat the team that ended up winning the West last year against LSU. 2 years ago, you have a chance to beat Alabama with a one-legged quarterback and no offense. I mean, like there were games where even with as bad as things were run, that you had opportunities. And the end of the year last year, we were talking about Robbie Ashford. I've said all along that it stunted his development as a quarterback, but for the last 4 games, you finally had a coaching staff that said, look, here's how we have the best chance to win. And they put him in a position to win. Now, it didn't help Robbie in terms of quarterback play because they only threw it on 3rd down and threw it, I think, 12 or 13 times a game. But it's hard to be a quarterback when you only throw it that few times. But they also said, look, we can run the football. And they ran it for more yards against Alabama than anybody in Nick Saban's time at Alabama, which is pretty incredible. And they did it with really no passing game to speak of. That shows you that there's potential there. And I think the offensive line group has a chance to be better than that group's been the last 2 years. You don't have a ton of depth, but Dylan Wade at left tackle, Gunner at right tackle, Avery Jones in the middle. You got Jeremiah Wright. You got Tate Johnson. You got some pieces there. I think they have a chance to do some things offensively that hadn't been done in a few years at Auburn. And if you do that, then all of a sudden you start to make yourself a little different. Because right now, if you don't, and I've said it all along, and you have to play defense still to win a championship. But if you don't score, you cannot win a championship. You can win one without a great defense, but you can't win one with a terrible offense. And that's been shown.
Yeah, that is true. Jason, Frank is making great points. And what we didn't mention is about the transfer portal. We all remember in 2018 when a kid out of Athens, Ohio, Joe Burrow, transferred to LSU. That first year, he completed 54.6% of his passes. The next year, he was pushing 78%. I was there September 15th, 2018. Second hottest game I've been to in my life. First hottest, September 14th, 1990, Jackson, Mississippi, the world's largest outdoor steam room. Auburn, 24.
Number one of all time. They'll never be. I hope there'll never be a hotter game than that one.
I mean, and the worst part,
and yet we call it the cold game for Cole Tracy. That's how it's referred, the cold game.
But this was Auburn but that Auburn Ole Miss game in 1990. My sister and I were in Greenville and ran a triathlon that morning, then drove to Jackson. It was unbearably hot. But we were watching people pass out left and right. But I see, and Frank, what I love about Jason is his truth broker. You ask the guy a question, he does the research. Jason, I'm addicted to your website. I'm addicted to it. There's so much good content on there. And you're a journalist first. You're not just a throw it against the screen and make it work. But I want to commend you for updating information. That name off how many people are part of that team, because it just seems like it's growing. But I can't go an hour between checking in without something new being on there. And I commend you for that, because and it ain't just Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
No, we got a couple things up this morning. Could have more excitement this afternoon. 4-star Malik Blockton will announce at 3:00 today, and so I'll be in Montgomery later this afternoon. But yeah, it's there's always something going on. Nathan King, Christian Clemente, Philip Marshall writing columns. Mark Murphy's still around, semi-retired. We'll see if we can drag him back out for football season.
You've got to.
He's enjoying life with the RV and with his wife Cindy right now, and I can't blame him for that. So,
that's Aubrey one.
Yeah, lots of things going on. And right now, if you haven't ever subscribed, now through the 15th, so another week, you can get for 75% off as a part of the anniversary sale at Auburn Undercover, which means that's about $26 a year. Wow. Can't beat it. It's the best deal going. So if you haven't ever signed up before, this is the time to do it.
Well, you put out so much good information. You also do it on Twitter. You're active. I like to call Twitter today's real-time newspaper. So tell people how they can follow you, and we'll let you go.
Yeah, right there. You can see it at ITAT Jason. And yeah, I'm not one, hopefully, that blows up your Twitter feed with just crazy stuff. I like to save it for something that actually meaningful. I did tweet a whole lot about the Caldwell series a couple of weeks ago while it was going on, because that's one of my passions. But there'll be some in a couple of weeks when the Open's played too, and then I get up early in the morning and watch some golf. But other than that, it's normally Auburn sports, Auburn related. So, like I said, but lots of information coming out of things we do there at Twitter as well.
Yeah, it is. And Jason, real quick one, I saw something on Twitter. It's pretty cool. How Southern are you? 1 point for every food you've tried. 1 through 5 might be a Yankee. 6 through 10, you're close. And then, so bottom line is, of these following, just going to ask you real quick, which ones have you ever had? Peach cobbler, sweet tea, chicken and dumplings, cornbread, gumbo, frog legs, chicken fried steak, hush puppies, white gravy, grits, oyster salad, and congealed salad. That would be like tomato aspic. My mother and her friends love that stuff. I'm like, you couldn't pay me enough to eat it. But have you had all of those or most of them?
I'm not a congealed salad fan. That's one in my family that people will eat.
Yeah.
And I don't know about oyster salad either. I might eat a fried oyster, but I'm not eating oyster salad. I don't know what that is. So.
Yeah. I was born in a pirogue. I don't even know what the hell an oyster salad is.
Yeah. I have had oyster dressing on Thanksgiving. I've had that. So
that's my favorite.
But no oyster salad, no congealed salad, pretty much everything else.
And here's the last one. A listener. Have you ever had a listener, either one of you, or a coolicle?
I don't know what that is, no.
Now, in the Mississippi Delta, down there where we hunt in Lambert between Marks and Vance, Mississippi on Highway 3, you can go in a grocery store and say, give me a listener and a coolicle. A listener is a pig ear sandwich soaked in barbecue sauce, served on white bread. Pig ear sandwich. And a coolicle is a pickle juice put into a popsicle and frozen. They sell them at Walmart now.
I have seen those. No pig ear sandwich. I'll just take me a good old Boston butt.
That's right. All right. Hey, Jason, thank you so much, as always, for taking time to join us. You can feel it. We're 9 days away from the start of media days. If you do the math, wow, that's 216 hours, man. Commissioner Sankey will be giving his State of the Conference address at the time, and I'm sure the Oklahoma and the Texas press contingents will be there. But have a great weekend. Always love having you on here and appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys. See y'all soon.
Okay, thanks. And Jason Caldwell, man, I'm going to tell you.
Good.
What I love about him is when Harsin was there, I kept saying, you're starting to see, as Jack Crystal, the legendary Mississippi State announcer, would say, when there was a game in Starkville, Scott Field, he would say, there's movement on the aisles here in Starkville and Scott Field. And I'd say, do you see some movement on the recruiting front, the Auburn, he'd go,
nope.
I don't think these guys get it. And Frank, you're right. Oyster salad. I've never heard of that. And I've tried just about everything that has ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled. And give respect to Phil Robertson. That's the motto on his seasoning, the Duck Commander. He goes, it's good on anything that ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled. Always give credit where it's due. You heard what Jason said his passion is. He's a great baseball announcer. He fills in sometimes on the Auburn Sports Network doing baseball games.
That's cool.
And had to get you two together because, let's give a pronunciation on a couple of those names from the Venezuelan players. Give me
Ranazo El Caldandro at second base.
Yeah. My Spanish teacher in high school, Marguerite Sala, came up in 1959 from Cuba when Batista was deposed by Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, a couple of real scumbags. But she would make us roll our R's.
Oh, yeah.
And she would say, Julio Perez. No. Julio Perez. And
Rodriguez.
Yes, we do. And by the way, before Kevin comes on, I'm over here at Billy's. Now, we came to Billy. We were going to leave yesterday. I got so busy with work stuff, phone charger issues. I think everybody has to deal with your portal getting full of lint is what it does, and it won't charge. And I had multiple calls for work, and I could not run the risk of my phone dying. So we ended up staying here. And Billy had said, hey, man, come on over here. So we came here, and Mallory was like, stay with us. And so, at some point, we got to go back to parking where the air conditioner is out at the house. And it only goes up to 90 on the wall unit. And now we're being told that there's a chip problem due to the shortage of chips. So the motherboard relies on those chips. And I'm like, so we've got 2 window units going now. Back to the old days, man. 5 TV channels is next.
I got one unit out upstairs, and they came and they didn't have the right parts, so they're coming back. And that's where all the heat, of course, rises. I went up there. I was like, the dog went up there. I was like, you get down. But hey, look, my phone charger problem was an interesting one about a week and a half ago. Every time that I would go into the College World Series games, I saw all 8 games. When I walked in, you have to have your phone because of your ticket was on it. It was totally electronic. And I was there all day at Rocco's taking care of that 68,888 shot record that we put up. And so my phone would run out. I'd have to walk back to the team hotel at the Hilton just to charge up to try and get an Uber. Now, that was all fine and good until Monday night when I had to try and do it after about 20 Jello shots. Let me just tell you, you've never really messed up a phone until you've tried to jam the phone charger cord into it backwards. I'm just like,
Frank is telling me horror stories.
I got home on the Uber that night by the grace of God, but I went home a national champion.
Well, Billy was telling me it's lint. So when you put your phone in, if the portal is down there, you put it in the other way. Well, I've got these 2 guys. I can't remember their names. They're right next door to Toomer's Drugstore at Toomer's Corner in Auburn, between the drugstore and Moe's Barbecue. And you pay them, and they take your phone for a couple of hours. It's kind of like watching the law or sausage being made, as Mark Twain said. Don't hang around to watch. You leave, you come back, and it works. It beats the heck out of getting a 24 to 30 month indentured servant contract with AT&T for, the buy one, get one free. Ain't nothing free in life except pink slips and STDs. I'll just say that.
By the way, don't you just love Toomer's Corner? I love every year that I go. Yeah. I love going there. Yeah. Toomer's Corner is just friggin' Auburn. And that bar that's catty corner right from Toomer's is where we go when we win. But I will tell you what, the time that we had when Finley was our quarterback right after the Natty, and we came in, skinned us by about 45. Yeah. I felt like I was Indiana Jones cutting through all the toilet paper rolls just to get out of Toomer's Corner, just to get back to Atlanta.
Exactly.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, we're going to take a quick break. Saturday, we got to be on the tighter schedule, but we're broadcasting live here from Brookhaven with Billy Roberts. Got Wimbledon on in the background. America's a better country when tennis is strong, NASCAR is rolling, and baseball is strong, and we got great sports writers like Kevin Scarbinsky. Love it. We're going to learn a lot right after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you, and Andre Pulpwood Smith, running back. You remember that name, Kevin Scarbinsky?
I do. That's one of the great nicknames in history right there. College.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I love about this show is we get the best guests. And Kevin, let me just say, without any further, absolutely, whenever you are on this show, first of all, we appreciate, and I appreciate Frank and every guest we have, you taking time to share with us and join us, because it means the world to us. You got something that you want to talk about, man, the unfasten your seatbelt sign is blinking. Feel free to walk around the cabin and even smoke if you want to. It's a Dean Martin roast is what we're going to start calling it.
I've never done that. Thank goodness. I never picked up that vice of smoking.
Neither have I, thank God.
First of all, congratulations to Frank, to the LSU Tigers for the College World Series championship. As a Gator fan,
wonderful.
My son, we watched. Well, we didn't watch the entire final game 3. I'll tell you that.
Well, let me tell you, you watched more of game 3 than I watched the game 2, and I was actually in the place.
I hear you. But it was well deserved. 2 great teams, and nice to see the SEC continue its dominance in college baseball. But yeah, Rob, I appreciate that. I've got an exciting new way for people to read my stuff. It's not new. The concept is not new. It's new to me. I've got a newsletter now, and it just started this past Thursday, and it's going to be every Thursday. And you can, I'm still going to write in Sundays in the Lede.
Yeah.
So like Sunday column will still be there in the Birmingham Lede, but I will have the newsletter now every Thursday. And so the Lede has a lot of other content, a lot of other great content, obviously. But if you're just interested in reading my stuff, you can subscribe to my newsletter for $5 a month. You'll also get my Sunday column in the Lede, anything else I do in the Lede. So that's a cool opportunity for people to do that. You can go to it. You can find it on my Twitter at Kevin Scarbinsky. You can go to al.com/sports. They've got promos for it running, and those will continue for some time. So I hope people will sign up, and it really gives me an opportunity to talk about more stuff. With 2 columns a week, there's a lot of things that I don't really get an opportunity to comment on and discuss. But with the newsletter, I can talk about 3, 4, 5, 6 different things, really whatever moves me that week. So
latitude. You got some latitude. You can expound.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly, Frank. That's a good way to put it. Gives me more latitude, yeah.
Hey, like they say, you're not on a pitch count, you're not on a pike account. Congratulations on the launch, buddy.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So I hope people will sign up and subscribe and be interested, and it also gives people. And this is one of the detriments of communicating as a writer. You don't get a chance for instant feedback, although you do on Twitter, I guess, in that way.
Yeah.
But this way, people can email me if they have questions they want me to answer, if they have subjects they want me to address. that can send me an email. It's my email address it's really hard to remember. It's Kevin@kevinscarbinsky.com. So
that's SC, not SK.
SC. Although I still have an aunt in Pennsylvania who spells it with a K and then an I at the end. I've never gotten a good explanation. It's my dad's sister. I've asked him many times. I've never really gotten a good explanation for why that is. But in my case, it's SCARBINSKY.
Yeah. And then, so now to subscribe to this newsletter, because I subscribe to the Lead, and I'm telling you, we may have criticized as just regular readers or fans something the paper says, but damn it, it makes you think. And as the son of an architect who's 94, he still every day goes, boy, what's the schedule of games on TV? The damn paper doesn't put them in there. So I got to go, well, go to here. He wants that thing written out so he can plan around the schedule. There are a lot of people like him that are very smart, like you said, your dad, anybody, and they like to see this. So exactly how, tell them right now, and we'll do it again before you get off the show, how they can subscribe, because Buddy Martin's going to be on with us in the second hour. It's so critical to me. I call it show prep. If I read what Franz Beard is saying in GatorBaitMedia.com, you've got that structure early, and I'm up at 5:30 in the morning at least, and you've got an idea of where you're going. So let people do that, and we got a lot of stuff, a lot of questions already coming in for both of y'all.
Yeah, two ways, Rob, really to subscribe. Go to my Twitter @KevinScarbinsky, and I think I've got it pinned, but if not, it's very high at the top of the thread. I'll pin it on the top of my Twitter, where you can click on the link. I have an introduction, if you will, an introductory letter to readers inviting everyone to join me on this adventure. So you can go through and subscribe that way, or go to al.com/sports, and you will see you'll see the first newsletter. The lead item was about Willie Mays and Birmingham native. And obviously, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. I don't think that the Major League Baseball is coming to Birmingham a year from now in June to Rickwood Field, the oldest professional ballpark in America. The St. Louis Cardinals and the San Francisco Giants will play a regular season game on June 20th, 2024. It will honor Willie Mays and all the Negro Leaguers that played for the Black Barons, the Negro League. The Negro League Championship Series, the Negro League All-Star Game was played there. As I joked, this is not a movie set like Field of Dreams, although 3 movies have been filmed there, including 42 about Jackie Robinson. God. So that's really cool. So that's the first item. There's a couple of baseball things in there. We'll be very football heavy, as you can imagine, going forward in the newsletter. Yeah, Frank, I'm telling you, and everybody listening, it's like financial newsletters. There's certain people that you listen to. Peter Lynch is an icon because of what he did with Fidelity Magellan Fund. And people go, he's been out of the business for 20 years and people still think he's in the business. When I think of Kevin, I'm thinking about beat writer. I think about, here's my comparison I'm going to make on the national. Nothing against these national guys, but Buddy Martin really jogged Frank's brain and my brain when he said, you know what a national expert is? When an expert is, it's someone from out of town that comes in with an opinion. Well, I go back to August of 1990 when George H.W. Bush said, well, we have satellites up in space that can see Iraqi tanks along the border with Kuwait. And we can see images. In fact, we can see what they're wearing, but we have no idea what their intent is. If I want to know what's going on with LSU, I want to get, Glenn Gimbal, Jimmy Ott, Jacques Doucet, WAFB, Channel 9, Frank Duffy, local. I want to know what's going on in the state of Alabama. Kevin Scarbinsky, Jason Caldwell, folks like y'all, Rodney Orr, Alabama. You want to go on specifically, but I can go to Kevin Scarbinsky, and he's an advice aggregator. He's a quarterback. He knows because he has relationships. Kevin has actually stayed up till past midnight, past bedtime, to get a story out the next morning. And far too often, Rob, I used to convince myself in my younger days, I convinced myself I was a better writer at night. Yeah. And so
Hey, it worked for Hemingway. It work for you, right?
Well, he was one of my idols. So
Absolutely.
maybe that's where I got it from. But I would stay up till ridiculous hours writing, and I still do it on occasion. I try not to do it as much.
Scarbo, have you gotten down to his house down in Key West ever? If
I have, yes.
Cool, to watch that, to see upstairs when you walk upstairs and you see his little writing area with that. I mean, you can almost smell the scotch from wafting out still. I mean, just how cool is that, huh?
Yes, it was very inspiring. I'll say absolutely.
We were in his bar in Bimini called Hemingway's in 1986. Auburn was in Houston. We got across from Hollywood, Florida in the sailboats that night. We were pretty liquored up. And I remember Auburn beat UNLV. We got that news. This was like April of 86, spring break, whatever, at Auburn with 27 fellow Auburn students. We just went out to Bimini for spring break. Then we were in Hemingway's when Auburn was playing against the team that we lost to in Louisville. 82-75, I think it was. And we were crushed. And so we drank heavily, but we walked everywhere. But that bar was really cool. And you talk about inspiration for great writers. You go to Oxford, you go to Faulkner's house there. And are the great writer, Kevin, I love the fact, and Frank is a historical fanatic like I am. You draw inspiration from these great writers. But I did a lot of my best work in high school at 2 or 3 in the morning for school. Just because I waited till the last minute. But
I did that on my mom's car on the way to school.
That's one thing you learn as a sports writer, especially in the SEC, traveling around. You write in some strange places, and you used to have to find strange places to send your column story back to the newspaper with some of the early writing devices we had. We had a thing called a telegram that looked like a typewriter. Looked like a typewriter, or looked like a sewing machine box. It was about this big, and it had 2 couplers in the top, and you had to put the phone in the cup. But that was so sensitive. If it was too cold, if it was very hot, if there was a lot of crowd noise, I'd find myself huddled over the thing trying to protect it. So it would go through the phone line and get to the paper in one piece. Those were the days.
No, it is. And I think about, here's something from a listener down in Fairhope, Shelby Foote, great writer. And I remember his son Huggy and I were in 2nd grade together at PDS. I went over to his house one day. My mother picked me up. I come home, we're eating dinner, back when families all ate dinner together, no TV on. And to turn that damn thing off, boy. And my mother goes, "Did you meet Huggy's father?" I'm like, "Yes, I did." And she goes, "What was he doing?" I go, "He was sitting in a chair and he was writing and he was smoking a pipe." He was smoking a pipe and he had, his customary, scotch next to him. Great Southern writer. Madison Jones, the writer in residence at Auburn. I think there's a Welsh connection, the Irish, but I love, Kevin, Bo Carter, when he's on here, Buddy Martin, I always get them mentor the young journalist. And Frank, you and I both, I think it's a disservice for people to say, "Oh, nobody needs that anymore." I'm going to tell you what, the further we've gotten from people reading newspapers every day, the dumber we've gotten. You can't, I was a TV reporter, and I remember the rivalry with the radio guys, the TV guys, and the print guys. Looking back, you had Socrates, Plato, Aristotle over here, and then you had, Monty Hall and Let's Make a Deal over here a lot of times. You've got to get it right. When we started this show, August 9th of 2019, we were doing 1 day a week for 2 hours. March 14th of 2020, how about timing, guys? First weekend of the pandemic, we started doing a Friday, Saturday show. Then August 2nd of 21, after meeting Bob Lockamy in Birmingham, Kevin, and Bob, we met him at the club June 2nd of 21 for David Housel's book signing from the back booth at Chappie's. He just said, "I want to help you." And I cannot thank that man enough, what he's done. But he said, you're right. You can't, there's so much to get out. And that's what I love about social media.
It's funny, Rob, that you mentioned the rivalry between newspaper writers and TV people. Yeah. I found this in my archives the other day. This is from November of 1987. Auburn had Midnight Madness basketball practice.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when teams would do that to start practice
Oh,
on October 15th? And this was we actually played a media game before Auburn's Midnight Madness practice, and it was TV guys against newspaper guys. And the students in the Auburn Sports Information Office put together pregame notes. They did. I mean, we had a referee. Melvin Harrelson was the referee who played for Auburn. They did a box score here, and it says "Print gears up for the hairspray brigade," and we were the TV busters. And I want you to know that the TV busters won the game. Let's see what the score was: 56-36.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be modest. I'm not gonna tell you who had a double-double and who was the leading scorer for the.
Is it a guy from Pottsville, PA?
It might be.
Hey, the only amazing thing is that lighting up the cigars by the print crew didn't set the TV crew's hair aflame. That's the only shocking thing.
Yeah.
Well,
you remember? Hey, Philip Marshall was notorious.
Yes.
So Philip, again, a legend, legendary sports writer in this state. Philip would go out of his way to antagonize the TV guys. He would get in there when you could go in the locker room in the post game. He would get in their way. He would bump into them. He would block their shots. It was very interesting to watch.
Well, when you think about the writers, the great sports writers, and again, growing up in Memphis, I would always listen. You know, I was doing with Jeff Weinberger would let me be on from August of '88 until I got my own show, and he died in July of '16. And I was on with some other people, but George Lapidus in Memphis, he had a Rolodex. He was the sports director at Channel 3 for a while, and one of the camera guys down there, Jeff Woods, and I interned there in the spring and summer of '88. He said nobody in the world has a Rolodex like that. But you think that's what I try to model. What I do is you bring on the best guests, engage them, and let them tell their stories. Just get out of the way. God, when Philip Marshall, when you're on, I mean, Alf Van Hoos, and Jimmy Bryan and Charles Hollis. I remember as a freshman at Auburn talking to Charles Hollis one time. And he was sitting in his front seat with one leg out of the car, one leg in. And I was working as a student assistant for David Howells and Buddy Davidson. And Reba was like a mom to me. She's one of the sweetest ladies in the world. Mel Pulliam, Dwight Johnson, these people. And he goes, "You want to be a sports writer?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Get used to living on the road and cheap motels and bologna sandwiches at midnight and deadlines."
Hey, wait a second now. Wait a second. Charles was like my big brother at the Birmingham.
He was incredible.
News.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, he was lying about the bologna sandwiches. Charles knew every good restaurant in the South, places that even the locals might not know. Charles knew where they were, when they were open, what they served, how to get there. He would recommend what you should order. So traveling with Charles was a treat because you were going to eat very, very well.
No, I agree with you. And here's a memory from Dave Cody's listening right now. He's got a lot of Auburn blood in him, and he's out in Bellingham, Washington, and he listens every day to this show and appreciate that a lot. And he's helping to run a golf course out there. It's 72 degrees and sunny every day. But he goes, "I was in school when the copper kettle blew up. We made CNN on a Sunday morning. An hour later, and all those churches nearby would have been full. Unbelievable." He watches the Toomer's Corner camera live from out in Bellingham, Washington. So, I think when I think about the writers, I see it. And we're about to go to a break. When I think about the great writers, and I think about Doug Dean's another one that's, journalism majors. And some of my friends that are incredible, they were English lit majors. That's you go to law school, you can do anything with it. If you can write and know to indent 5 spaces to the right, people instantly know, okay, I'm dealing with a literate man, a literate woman, or a literate kid. It's incredible. We're going to be right back. We're getting this band rolling right after this quick commercial. got them back. John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, Rob Browne, getting the band together here on a Saturday morning. And again, Doug Dean, thank you for joining us. You're on the watch. Have you had another grandchild, or what's the clock looking like?
No, I won't waste too much time talking about all these babies getting birthed. But yeah,
That's awesome, buddy. Mazel.
Thank you. Young Henry, my daughter Allison's baby Henry, spent a 5-day weekend at Lake Martin with us. He was not ready for skiing quite yet, but we got a lot of
But you put his feet in there, didn't you?
Of course. A lot of bonding going on, and he shows early signs, Scarbo, of being a southpaw. So I'm a little disappointed.
Nurture that.
Yes. People have told me that you can contribute to your child if you're that sick becoming a southpaw by putting their fork always on the left where they have to, learn to be left dominant. But I'm a little disappointed Hugh Freeze hasn't even scheduled a visit at our home yet.
Hey, as a lifelong catcher, just hide the damn catching equipment. That's all I'm telling you. It's my best advice. Hide it, throw it away.
Yeah, I'll get to you in a minute.
Don't let him do that.
I'll get to you and LSU Nation's Jello shooters in a minute. But and then thanks for asking, Rob. My daughter Lauren, our other twin, was supposed to deliver Wednesday or Thursday, and there's too many women in Birmingham in labor, Scarbo. It's like scheduling a damn 5-star restaurant now.
Hey, I had nothing to do with it. My birth and babies days are over.
I understand, but
I don't know nothing about birth and no babies.
But Lauren is scheduled to, at worst case, she will start going into labor this Sunday, tomorrow, no matter what. And hey, Kevin, I love to hear that you're following my AU Daily Dose business model, a newsletter. And I don't know if you did that in your past at Birmingham News and AL.com, but I'll tell you what you're going to love and hate about it. For $5 a month, I promise you, you're going to get questions from readers as if they were in the platinum model for $100. Kevin, do you think Coach Saban will coach 3 more years? And you can't answer that. It's going to be all over the internet. So good luck with that. You'll have fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah, that's, as I was telling Rob and Frank, that's one of the, I guess there's good and bad to it, but it does allow me to interact with readers, for them to shoot me questions, point me to subjects that they'd like me to talk about. So we'll see how that goes. I used to do a live chat. I initiated this on AL.com years ago. It was called Live at 9. Although the readers, of course, once they got to know me, they changed it to Live at 9:15, Live at 9:18, whenever I would show up that morning, and not being a morning person. And so we had a lot of fun with that. So I'm looking forward to this. And it gives me, Doug, that's the thing about a newsletter. I can touch on a lot of different subjects. I'm not restricted to one subject as I would be that's the way I write columns. I generally choose one subject. And
I'll tell you what's beautiful. You know this already, and I'm going to offer a special promotion of your email through my newsletter, which is currently going to about 20,000 Auburn people. Sir. I assume there's some exponential beyond that. You know how people forward emails, and
double knot spies is what we call them.
Yeah, I can't measure that. I just try to keep Coach Saban's operatives out of there, which is challenging. And anyway, yeah, they are, to their credit. But Kevin, I want to be able to promote your newsletter, $5 a month. And my idea was, I'm sure you'll be agreeable to this, that you're going to make August Auburn Homer Month with all your content.
Before the first game.
Well, I can tell you that Alabama fans will think that. That's what they will dub it when they read my stuff. And meanwhile, Auburn fans will dub it Bammer Homer Month.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, my idea, the reason I'm asking for August, I'm a reasonable man, is August, we're not playing actual ball yet. And so it would help this lowly program. We're just trying to get our football program started from scratch here, Kevin, as you know. But by September, Coach Saban, Smart, and I guess that guy who has a family in Baton Rouge will suck all the oxygen out of the air. So I'll take August.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
That 2-point magician is now in the family. We've adopted him. He's one of us.
And Kevin, on a serious note, I really will promote your new newsletter when I next send a dose out.
Thank you, Doug. I do appreciate that. Yeah, the more people we can alert, the better. Obviously, if you have a subscription product, you want people to subscribe, you want people to read it, and you want people to interact, like I said. So,
you know,
thank you
as
so
you
much.
know, what you're going to get is more engagement. You know why? Nobody has to think about opening up the lead or whatever. So when it drops in somebody's inbox, you'll get a lot of engagement from readers.
Yeah, well, what I love about it is the reading part of it. And Buddy Martin's on here with us right now, GatorBaitMedia.com, and so glad to have you back, buddy. And I just was reading what you sent me. It's absolutely beautiful, and just so glad to have you back. And Kevin's on here, Frank Duffy, Doug Dean, and getting the band back together. I've had a lot of people asking, and you've been in a lot of people's prayers, and always will be. But welcome back, buddy.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I
We
feel
love
like
you,
Ringo.
buddy.
Thank you, man. And thank you for all your messages. I feel like Ringo Starr here getting the band back together, but with this group. Yeah, I've missed you, and thank you for the kind words. We're not going to dwell too much on it, just to say that we missed Joni. She passed 3 weeks ago last Thursday, and we think about her every minute. So if I shed a tear here and there, you have to forgive me, but I'm not ashamed of it.
Well, and buddy, I also share from the Auburn family, those that heard about your sad news, that our love and prayers to you. And I have to share, because I don't know if I doubt you would have been able to hear live when Franz, your colleague and comrade, Gator comrade, said, use the word radiant to talk about your wife. And that is, to me, a powerful word to describe any woman. So I'm glad she was in your life for so many years.
Thank you, Doug. And I will say this: Franz wrote an absolutely beautiful column. And, I mean, he just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And he knew Joni pretty well. And the irony of it, he wrote such a good column, I haven't been able to write one. He said everything that I could have said and better, and it was just received by so many people. And she was much beloved, and she had a special life. Everything was about us, her kids and me. She sacrificed everything like many good wives do. So we won't make this a eulogy to Joni, but just tip your cap to her to say that she was truly the most amazing woman I've ever known.
Absolutely.
That's the greatest tribute you can pay her, buddy.
Thank you.
Absolutely is. And buddy, I watched you last week one night on the Buddy Martin show, and you came on. It was awesome. And Brendan, your son, is a rising star. I mean, I know he's technical behind the scenes and all.
I don't know. I think he's become a writer. He fooled us all by writing something and blew everybody away. And who knows what lurking, but he is, he's got that heart. That's
and I don't think he's really behind the scenes anymore. I mean,
no, he's leading the scenes. Yeah, really.
You and I've been on the phone with him before, but man, he's smart. And Franz, I talked to Franz yesterday. You know, it is that what he wrote about your wife, married 61 years, absolutely incredible. And just glad, you know, that you got to share all that with us. And again, I'm going to read. I've read what you sent me right just a few minutes ago. It's incredible. It is powerful. And hope you are around to make it to 100. That's the deal. Is you got a lot to offer. And I think what Kevin and Doug and Frank and so many people have asked about you is just hope you're doing well. And you know, it's obvious you love what you do, reporting and telling the stories. And I was watching the other night. Y'all would have loved this discussion about a $400 million facelift on the Swamp. But is Steve Spurrier, was that the issue? Is he going to be on the advisory board about making the improvements? Or if he's not, as Slim Pickens would say, what in the what's going on with that?
We don't know yet. I talked to Coach Spurrier yesterday. He's been great, called several times. And there's a lot to say about that, which I don't know. I mean, it's something that had to be done. And everybody's excited about it because the stadium needs a makeover and there's a lot of problems. But here's the thing, and I wrote this. I don't think some people liked it. It was, yeah, I'm all for it. I get it. They need to do seats, bathrooms, escalators, all kinds of things. But don't ever change it from being the Swamp. And I've been down this road before with other projects and people. My little sister was a fighter in Ocala here, trying to preserve the homes that were being torn down. When they tore down the courthouse 40 years ago, whatever it was. She said, that's it. I've had enough. And she went out and she started getting these houses, these wonderful old homes on the historical register. And she helped save a whole bunch of them up and down Fort King Street here in Ocala. It's known as the historic district. And so it's because of her that we preserved part of that. Now, look, I know this is 2023, right, that year, and that there's changes that need to be made without question. But don't forget the swamp, what the swamp was and what it is, what made it the swamp, being in that hole, being loud, being what it is. It's one of the most iconic stadiums in sports anywhere. So I think Scott Strickland knows this. He'll go forward very carefully. But, people can get all caught up in this and say, oh, how about this? We can't make this. Let's move off campus down. No, not going to do that. Keep the swamp where it is. So that was my take on it. I guess I rain on people's parade, but I had to say it. My preservation's heart says, don't mess it up.
Buddy, amen to that, buddy. And I haven't been to a game there in a while, but is it still where the students are breathing down the neck? They are right there behind the bench of the visiting team. Is that still the case?
Well, that's partially correct. The problem is some of the students aren't coming out for the games, and that's one of the issues they have. They're talking about shrinking the size of the stadium and making it maybe 5,000, 8,000 fewer. But you got 90,000 fans on top of you there. That's what made the swamp. And I know Scott Strickland knows that. But again, let's just be real careful going forward that we don't get too anxious and want to build a Taj Mahal and leave out the parts that make it the great venue that it is.
You have to be able to walk down that avenue underneath those moss-shrouded trees to walk into that stadium. That must remain. That is one of the most iconic things for us visitors to come in to go. I mean, back in the old days, which is cocktails, we'd walk across that street and we'd walk down. You knew you were in Florida. That was the one iconic place you could not miss walking into a stadium. You knew exactly where you were before you got there.
Buddy, I'm feeling a little greedy this morning, so I have to take a chance, and Rob won't mind, I know, asking if you could convince the GOAT, Coach Steve Spurrier, to grace us with even 10 minutes down the road. Wow, that would be big.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it. I'm going to tell you guys, I have not announced this yet. I'm working on it now. So I had to sort my future out the last 3 weeks. My life has changed a lot. And so I'm going to continue to do what I do. But what I'm really excited about is that I talked to Coach Spurrier yesterday, and I talked to him about coming to do a show from the restaurant once in a while. And here's the other thing, and I'll get to this in a minute. There was a recent poll like 2-3 days ago about if you want to hire a coach, what coach would you hire that no longer used to coach and no longer is? Well, believe it or not, Spurrier was in second place. And by far, the number one, 4 times as many votes was Urban Meyer. Wow. Now, I know Urban. I talked to him just yesterday. And
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to announce this to you first. I will be doing a show with Urban, probably maybe from Spurrier's restaurant. I will return to the best Fridays in football this fall. And Urban's going to come down and do one on live. So that's stuff I haven't told my own people.
I would be willing to bet, hard to prove, I guess, that Urban benefited from, shall we call it, a halo effect of how beloved Tim Tebow is to Gator fans.
No doubt, but he's got to stand on his own 2 feet, and he knows that. I think he needs to be rehabilitated, and I think it will happen. I talked to one of his best friends the day before yesterday about this, and he needs to be in a Ring of Honor. He made some mistakes that he shouldn't have made. He knows that. He's paid for them. I know him personally really well, and I tell you what, he's a good dude. But
that will be where his reclamation project begins.
Yeah, and let's hope some Gator fans will never forgive him for whatever. I don't know exactly, because I guess they didn't like the way he left Florida. How could you possibly leave Florida? You're a communist, if you do that. But I mean, I've spent a long time defending Urban, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not his defense attorney. He's my friend. He just trusts me on this. I know him well. He's a good person.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you're a great writer. There are a lot of people out there have this narrative. They get it in their mind. And I learned this as a young reporter that's not the guy. A guy came up to me, an old reporter, and said, look, don't ever let the truth get in the way of a narrative that people are trying to push if that's what they want. Your thoughts about Urban Meyer as a Troy alum, a master's or a PhD from Florida. I want to hear what you think.
Well, first of all, the poll that you mentioned, buddy, I think that there's the Tim Tebow effect that you mentioned, Doug, I think has something to do with it. But also, there's a recency bias. There's people forget, and it's sad, what Steve's, to a lot of younger people, Steve Spurrier is, he's the elder statesman they see, doing interviews occasionally and popping up at different occasions. They don't realize the magnitude of what he accomplished there. And I liken it in some ways to Pat Dye at Auburn. Pat Dye didn't have, he didn't win a national championship, although the New York Times 1983 will differ. Their computer. But what he did there was, it's hard to put it into perspective. It's hard for people of younger ages to understand how much under Alabama's thumb Auburn was in 1981 when Pat took over that job. And to allow Auburn to look Alabama in the eye, to get the Iron Bowl out of Birmingham, it was astounding. I was looking through my archives, guys, and in 1987, I think it was, and Joab Thomas, who was president of the University of Alabama at the time, admitted they were trying to, this is when they played a 7-game SEC schedule. Alabama was trying to get Auburn off of the schedule as an annual opponent and make them an occasional opponent. And that was proposed by the University of Alabama. I mean, that's unthinkable today, but that was the case. And that was, it all went back to Pat Dye and what he accomplished at Auburn. And similarly, buddy, to what you're talking about, some people never forget, obviously Pat didn't leave Auburn under the best of circumstances.
Yeah. Hold that thought, Kevin. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I want to pick back up. Brandon Boger, good morning from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Always a great show. Also, damn proud to have you as a sponsor. We'll be right back. Great stuff on.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Browne back here with you, and Frank Duffy had to jump off. I think he's got to go to the airport, and loved having him on. He was having a little bit of technical issues there, but I'm going to say, Kevin, keep going, and Doug's got a follow-up question right after this, but this is great stuff. I never knew that about Joab, who said Alabama at the time emphasized sports too much. That really went over well, didn't it?
Yeah, I do recall that quite well. But, there was, and Doug, you can speak to this very well. There was some pushback when Auburn decided that they were going to put Pat Dye's name on the field and name the field in Jordan-Hare Stadium in his honor. Because, as I said, he didn't leave under the best of circumstances. They were put on NCAA probation. Although now, if you look back at what the actual violations were, they were jaywalking tickets compared to some of the stuff that's happened since. But it was obviously the right thing to do. Pat earned that honor. He deserved that honor. And I think more people saw the big picture and understood what he meant to the Auburn family. And I'm glad to see that. And maybe it'll take time, buddy, for for Florida people to realize what Urban accomplished there, because it was pretty extraordinary. You know, if you go back to this long run of SEC dominance in college football, and again, younger people don't understand, it wasn't always this way. The SEC didn't win the national championship every year in football. They didn't win it for a long time.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't multiple schools winning national championships either, the way that we've seen since the BCS started. But it really started with Florida and Urban in 06, and that long run that was one play away from continuing in 2013 with Auburn. So, I think time does heal wounds. And people do tend to see more of the big picture, and they realize that maybe the anger and the hard heart that you had at one point, maybe that tends to soften over time.
All they got to do is do this December 2nd, 1989, and that's just his deal. But I'm with you and what Buddy said. Doug, I want your take. This is great stuff.
Well, and I think Kevin's right. I might, you have confirmation bias when you're an actual fan and you remember some of what you want to remember. Kevin, I probably remember more like maybe 70, 80% that were elated that Coach Dye would get recognized with naming of the field. But then there's the third 20 or 30% that had objections. I don't quarrel with them at the time. There was a context at that moment in which maybe some people were upset that we got sideways with the NCAA. But yeah, really, come on, stakes for interceptions, helping a player. You would probably get a Nobel Peace Prize for it nowadays. I wanted to circle back a little to Buddy's or Rob's comment to Buddy about the exciting renovations. 40 million. I mean, is it 400 million?
400.
Yeah. 400 million ain't what it used to be, right? But Rob and I had the pleasure of having the great Jan Cowart, who played center for Coach Dye. Kevin will remember in the 80s, and is a pretty reputable, prestigious architect in his own right now. And he was at the head of the design committee, I believe, in his company in Auburn's recent unveiling of the $95 million football performance facility, which, as we sit, most people consider it the best of its class. And it will take a week or two for somebody to surpass it. That's the arms race that we're in right now. But a couple of comments, Buddy, that and the Gators need no help from an Auburn man about how to design their renovations. But what Jan Cowart said to Rob and I, some things to look for at whatever point Auburn engages a big renovation of Jordan-Hare. You've got to look at the character of the entire campus. So in Jordan-Hare's case, a lot of cool games have happened there, and it's magical. But the exterior would need a brick that, makes it compatible and aligns it with the rest of the campus. That's a lot of money. Also, you can forget about as much upper deck seating. They'll shift some to premium seating because
no doubt.
People are not going to sit in the upper deck and fry like an egg on a September afternoon. And that's what ESPN, who's had major bloodletting of Kevin's colleagues, which is sad to watch, that some talented broadcasters, commentators, including one of my favorites, Pollitt. I was surprised to see that. I probably enjoyed him. I don't care if he's a Georgia guy. I always thought he was pretty fair. And then Jan Cowart also talked about appealing to the younger generation, having rails where you can walk around and put a drink on a rail and get some shade, some creature comforts. So those are just a few tidbits from an actual architect, and I'll be watching what the Gator design build looks like. Maybe Auburn can learn from it.
Well, let me just interject, buddy. Jan Cowart, as intelligent an individual, not football player, as intelligent an individual as I may have ever encountered, certainly at that age when he was playing for Auburn. And if you saw his size at that time, and if you said he played guard in the SEC and played it very, very well on an incredible offensive line with the likes of Steve Wallace and Ben Tamburello at center, you would say that guy played guard. He looks like a walk-on safety today, not an all-SEC guard, but a brilliant mind. And I always said, and Jan was one of the reasons that if you took any position group, took the position groups on a football team and said which one is the most intelligent as a group. Offensive line, no question.
And it's such a small world about Yan. My dad met him in 95. He was on the architectural board of review for 4 or 5 years at Auburn. He bought my dad's best friend, Sam Butner, Infinity Architecture in Montgomery, bought his practice. And then Sam died in September of 2018. Sigma Nu at Auburn. Dad was a KA. And it's just amazing what a small world it is. And I'm texting Yan right now. And Yan and his brother Philip's the development officer for the College of Agriculture. But Yan is one of my dad's heroes. I'm talking up there with Pat Sullivan, the late Harvey Glantz, Bo Jackson. That's how much respect. He goes, boy, I tried for about a month to play football in my spring of my freshman year and do architecture. He goes, I'd be up at Dudley Hall till 3 a.m. and 5 o'clock, shots in, and the coaches, Irk Russell would come kicking on the door. He goes, I realized I was good, but not that good. So what Yan should have a statue. If we're into building statues, Yan Cowart from Gallion, Alabama, over in the Black Belt. But buddy, let's get your take on this. Great insight always from Doug and Kevin. Y'all are great pause guests because you pause when you talk, like William Shatner. Audrey, my wife, says the greatest pause actor of all time. But you make people think and they listen to every word you say because you tail off at the end like Coach Dye used to do. But buddy, yeah, go ahead, buddy.
I'm here.
Yeah,
I was just
want to get your thoughts on that. Okay, sorry, I was on a roll. Too much coffee
I was
again.
listening to you guys talk about it. I happen to like the Auburn venue. Don't like it when Florida has to play there. It was for years the toughest place for Florida to win. People don't know this, but Florida could not beat them for so long. We had historical meltdowns there. Spurrier couldn't beat them up there as a player. I saw John Reeves throw 9 interceptions there, 9 national record. Brother Bill Cody and all that.
Emmett Smith had his heart broken there.
Yeah, it's tough. It might be the most underrated venue in the SEC in terms of how tough it is to play and what have you. And that crowd gets all buzzed. So there's so much great tradition there, which is another subject we talk about. We talk about changing. We want to keep some tradition, and they're dying out every day, more and more of it. So I just say again, I'm all for the state. I won't be around when they finally complete it, but I hope it's going to be something that Gator fans can be proud of, but feel like it's still a special venue, a special place for all those right reasons. So that's what we're looking for. And I get it. They have to do this now because compared to what other people have, I mean, it probably has the worst press box in the SEC, if not the country. It's awful, but nobody cares but about 10 people. But still, there's many other things, bathrooms and all the other stuff that goes with it. But so they're going to do it. They got the money. Now this infusion of all this TV money, which by the way presents the other problem. We all work for ESPN. Everybody does. We don't have any say about anything. Fans don't have any say about it. Media has nothing to say about it. And the administration does it. They all work for ESPN because the money is so much now. And it's good, but it's also can be very bad. I worry about that sometime, but I do feel that the great game of college football will survive. We've been through a lot before, and it's always survived. But I was saying the other day to a friend of mine, college football has changed more in the last 3 years than it has in the previous 50. It's a different game. And I was talking to my you all haven't got her on yet, but she is amazing. Alec Peak Wilbur, who's on with me every Wednesday. She's a 4-time Gator legacy. Her grandfather played at Florida. Her father played at Florida. Her brother played at Florida. She married a guy that played at Florida. And she does a podcast called Peak Inside Gator Football. It's terrific.
Yeah.
And so she brought it up the other day. College football doesn't know what it is. It really doesn't.
Well, by the way, I watched that episode when Allie Peak was on with you the other night. I mean, she was blow for blow. I want her on this show. She knows
she's a star in the making right now.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
she really, really knows her stuff. I'm talking. She's Aaron Andrews type good.
Exactly.
She's serious, man.
Knows more football than Aaron Andrews. I can tell you that.
Oh, I was going to say but cerebrally, she was going blow for blow with you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's like getting in the ring with Mike Tyson for 15 rounds.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, I was going to circle back and tell Scarbo that, I hope you don't mind me calling. I nickname everybody Kevin. I just can't. It's a malady.
No. Hey, listen, I love that nickname. And in fact, that's what I'm calling the newsletter, Scarbo Knows.
Go.
Love it.
Everybody, if you don't get a nickname from me, I don't like something about you. And I'm working on Buddy's nickname. But Kevin, if you could have survived, not made it through, not participated, but literally physically survived Coach Dye's and Wayne Hall's bubble practices, you could have played interior offensive line at Auburn.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
the
what made
bubble.
it.
The bubble was not a friendly or inviting place.
You would get criminal indictments over that now today.
Yeah. John Watson from Dothan donated that. It's kind of like the Hell House down in Jacksonville, Florida, where Leonard Skinner practiced. It was a concrete block building, no windows, no ventilation. That's why their songs had such a great angry beat to them.
Hey, Rob, I got a provocateur's question for these smart high football IQ guys, Buddy and Kevin, and you, Rob. As I look at this year and specifically the returning quarterbacks, I have to go back quite a few years to find a year in which there's only a couple or three, and I'll explain why two don't matter so much. Returning quarterbacks that you know what you've got in them. Auburn people are excited about Peyton Thorne. Now watch Robbie Ashford win the job. But at Alabama, they go into the portal and bring the transfer kid from Notre Dame. He may turn out to be all world. I like LSU's quarterback. We've seen what he's capable of. And then, of course, Will Rogers at Mississippi State, very good QB, but Mike Leach is not with us, rest his soul. And then Spencer Rattler at South Carolina. But Mississippi State and Carolina are not likely to be threats to win their divisions this year. So I think there's more margin of error. Kevin, we're going to see some upsets this year because of the unproven QBs. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, when's the last time we saw this much uncertainty at that position before August at both Auburn and Alabama? Alabama's coming off a run of 4 straight NFL starting quarterbacks playing for them. And here we are just after the 4th of July, and anyone who tells you they know who's going to be the quarterback at Alabama is lying.
Yeah.
They don't. I don't believe Nick Saban does. Certainly he has a clue, and people say, well, when is he going to decide? Is it going to be after the first scrimmage? He'll decide when it's decided. There's no rush. There's no blueprint that says you have to have a starting quarterback by August 15th. Or after the second scrimmage or the last scrimmage or whatever it might be. I think he will let it play out. And it may not play out fully before the first game kicks off. So, and the same thing at Auburn. And you're right, Doug. I don't know that anybody can say for a certain that the transfer from Michigan State is going to be the guy. We don't know that yet. I don't know that Hugh Freeze knows that yet.
He doesn't.
And that's a dangerous way to go into a season.
Yeah. For
so many teams in the league this year, so that does, because of the importance of that position, and that it has been elevated in importance in recent years, the way people are playing offense, it makes it more interesting and more exciting and more uncertain and leads to the possibility of more upsets, which is one of the reasons that we love this sport. Unless you're an Alabama or a Georgia fan, it can get kind of boring if all you care about is the national championship.
Yeah.
But there's so much drama that happens before we get there, before we get to the playoff, that may not even involve the playoff. And that's one of the reasons we love this sport. What might happen in Jordan-Hare after dark?
Of the newcomers,
what's going to happen in the swamp?
I might bet.
I would still watch.
Sorry, I walked on you. I might bet of the newcomers. I might bet on Georgia's QB just because Brock Bowers will make a quarterback good.
Yeah.
He's otherworldly good.
No doubt. Buddy, your thoughts?
I've been a Brock Bowers fan for 4 years. I thought he might be the best player in college football last year, but no one knew it. I want to circle back on one thing if I can, if we talk quarterbacks and I was talking about Allie. The other day, Gus Malzahn came out with a statement that said, it's the Big Four now in Florida, Florida State, Miami, and UCF. Now, UCF is a nice school, and they've done a good job, and they are the Big 12, and they're coming, but it was kind of heresy. It was almost heresy, and the person who called him out was Allie Peak Wilbur, and she did it masterfully. He says, hey, let's look at recruiting classes. Let's look at rankings. There ain't no way there's a Big Four in Florida and you ain't part of it. Maybe you will be, but you're not. And that's the kind of smackdown I like of a reporter or a writer or whatever. Someone will take on someone who tries to fabricate a story. And I get where he's coming from. I don't blame Malzahn for wanting to beat his chest about the Big 12 because it's a good thing for them. So we need more of those kind of journalists in our community. It wasn't anybody else that did it. It wasn't Mike Bianchi. It was Allie Peak Wilbur who did it. So I'm really proud of her. On the matter of quarterbacks, we could probably talk for 25 minutes and not name the person who would be the most outstanding quarterback in the SEC. I mean, you can look at what Ole Miss has got. My gosh, how can he possibly keep all these guys happy? Jason Dart, Spencer Sanders, Walker Howard. I mean, those guys could start for other SEC schools. So the quarterback situation, I'd go back again, not to talk too much about Spurrier, but I remember when he came there in 1990, there were 6 quarterbacks on the roster. And we kept asking him, Steve, who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback? Finally, one day he said, I don't know yet, but whoever we pick will lead the SEC in passing. It was Shane Matthews, and he did.
Well,
you got to love the moxie.
Hey, buddy, and this is a shame. Too many people are, I don't know, afraid is not the right word, but just hesitant at the least to say, I don't know. And people look at us and, we have experience and we've been around and we know people, we talk to people, but sometimes the smartest thing a man can say is
hold that thought, Kevin. We missed a break. We're going to take a quick break and come back because this is a great topic of conversation on Sidelines. I'm getting hungry. I'm just seeing on here. Great ribs, great show. Ribs are smoking in Parkin, Arkansas from Michael Jordan. MJ cooking 10 slabs of ribs. We got a fish fry and rib cooking and turkey shoot contest over at TK's farm over in Burnt Cane, Arkansas, folks. Now, Parkin is small, 1,108 people. Burnt Cane has 39. And a lot of places like that around Memphis, they're called hunting lodges. And TK's from Chicago. It's his place. But we'll be back there tonight when we get back to Memphis and Parkin. But want to say, Kevin, you were making some great points before the break. And Doug, unbelievable, provocative questions to engage, you, me, Kevin, Buddy, Frank.
When lob the softballs up there, Rob.
No, but I'm just saying, I love these questions, making everybody think. Steve Spurrier, I love that confidence. I don't know who it is, but he'll lead the SEC in passing. And Shane Matthews out of Gulfport and Biloxi, Mississippi, or was it past Christiane? Did it? Kevin, keep going.
Yeah, that's another reason that we've gotten to a place in society that where everybody thinks they're an expert or everybody wants to know right now every answer to every question they have, and sometimes the people who have to make the decisions don't know. The smart ones don't force it. As I said, Nick Saban's not going to force a decision on who his starting quarterback is going to be. He knows that has to happen naturally, organically, and it's a great phrase that I first heard him use, and maybe others had used it, was it's not who wins the job, it's who wins the team. And that's the thing that sadly we don't get to see enough of as sports journalists. Back in the day, of course, you could watch every practice. I spent so many hours on the Auburn practice field. I should have gotten a letter for as much time as I spent at Auburn football practice. Fortunately, I wasn't wearing pads and a helmet and didn't have to get hit. But you got to see what was going on, and you got to get a really good sense of how good the team was. Who did they rally around? Who did they pair off with when drills, when they had a break, when they had a water break, or when they walked off the field? Little things like that, nuances. They're harder to come by now because you just can't witness yourself what's going on behind the scenes. It's very scripted. It's very limited. to a period or two at the beginning of practice. So, but yeah, I don't know is a wonderful phrase, and I find that the older I get, the more I use it.
Well, if you ever go to court for anything, any kind of trial or arbitration or anything, any good attorney will tell you if you don't know, say you don't know. It's called the Fifth Amendment, I believe.
Don't ask a question in court that you don't already know the answer to.
That's right.
Isn't that the legal theory?
Hey,
Yeah,
Rob, going back to quickly to Brock Bowers, and wouldn't you think, guys, that the information is incredibly efficient nowadays? But in 2019, at the Nike Spark, SPARQ camp, Brock Bowers shows up unheard of, only had one offer, and it was from Nevada, but he ran a 4.5 from a lineman stance. And all of a sudden, people said, "Who are you?" And he ends up at Georgia, and he might get a look at the Heisman this year.
Well, 2 years
on my list, I can tell you that.
Out of Napa, California, great wine country. But I think his stats in 2 years are 1,862 yards, 119 catches, 20 touchdowns. Also, 9 rushes for 111 yards. I'm going off memory here, and 3 touchdowns. But I want to say something last night. Over here with Billy Roberts last night. And Billy and I lived together in college. He's from LaGrange. Plow him up, Granger's, Troup County. 4.5 tennis player. 13 people in his family went to Auburn. His father, the great one, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, a Florida grad gentleman, and still lives in LaGrange. He's 88, still working every day, designing stuff. Grew up in Key West. But I was watching, Billy said, watch this podcast last night. I'm going to throw this out to Buddy and Kevin and Doug, everybody listening. So we go in there. It's on YouTube. Rick Beato, guy here in Atlanta. He's a guitar guy. He's a music producer. He's got like 2.6 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. And I watched him, and the point was, know your subject when you get your guests on and do your research and your homework. Last night, he was able to get Brian May, the lead guitarist for Queen. And he also had Sting on there. Sting, rather an eccentric, kind of an introvert, he knows so much. He was able to say, you did this song in F minor, B flat, C this, and Sting just lights up like, this guy knows what he's talking about. I learn every time Doug's on here, Buddy and Kevin, of course, and all of our guests. Know your subject. I got to ask you, Allie Peak, I watched her the other night. She doesn't hold back. I don't know how old she is. I heard her saying she's got kids and all. Love to get her
sets of twins, too, both girls.
Good for her. So do I.
Look, I've got a fraternity brother from Eufaula, Alabama. Sean Thomas had quadruplets. They's all 4 born on the same day, 2 boys and 2 girls. And that's a lot. All Auburn grads, of course. But
Eufaula, Alabama, the home of Alan Trammell, Spurrier's good friend. Just want to say that.
Eufaula, Barber County. That's right. But for Doug, for Kevin, for Buddy, when you all are interviewing people, I know I do this. I watched interviews the other night for an hour and a half about Hunter Bagram, a bass fishing champion from Judsonia, Arkansas, we had on yesterday. Do y'all study a lot? I know Doug does, but do y'all both study a lot before you get people on, just so you'll be ready?
Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's waking up in the morning. That's basic to being a good interviewer and eliciting the best information and the most personal stories you can from an individual, is knowing as much as you can about that individual before you talk to them. That's just a part and parcel of the job.
I'm not a professional interviewer. I want to hear Buddy's comments because he is a pro, Kevin and Buddy both. But when I have interviewed to write an article for example, about a player, I try to avoid there's probably many, but one of the cardinal sins, which is to try to hear yourself talk more than, the point is to don't answer the question for the interviewee. People want to hear their point of view, but that I will research and try to find something off the beaten path that I suspect is going to ignite, not in a negative way necessarily, but ignite whoever you're interviewing and bring them back to a critical inflection point in their life that people might not have heard about. Buddy?
Yeah.
Depends on the interview. If you're researching a story, you want to devour everything you can, not because you want to sound smart. You don't need to do that. It's asking the right questions and the right timing and you said something about listening earlier. People don't hear the answers, and they go right over. And there's a skit a guy named Wally Ballou, a comedian, used to do, where he would be interviewed someone, and they say, "Well, yeah, I'm Wally Ballou. I'm talking to Rob Browne. Rob, how you doing? Good. Rob, what's going on in your life right now? Well, I just murdered 4 people, and I'm going to jail. Good. How the chickens doing this year? You know, I mean, they don't listen. That's one of those sins. And one of the things I learned from Larry King, watching him, he never wanted to know he never wanted to know people's answers. He never wanted to talk. He wanted them to be fresh when he asked them. So when you're doing a TV and radio interview, sometimes you can know too much and be too smart. Discover it along with the listener, and that sometimes is better. On the subject of interviewing someone for a major article, yes, do a deep dive, find out a little bit about their backgrounds. They respect you more when you ask the right questions.
I'm going to say, buddy, that's a great point about listening. When you have a that's another thing. Have a conversation. Make it a conversation. Don't make it a Q&A. Don't make it stiff and formal. The more informal you can make it, the more you can make your interviewee at ease and relaxed. There's an old saying: when you're talking to someone, treat famous people like they're not, and people who aren't famous like they are.
That's good.
And that's a good way to get some interesting stuff out of them.
Rob, I don't know if edits or of things where this is live TV. I always have to remember. But I want to catch myself in the discussion of QBs, lest I draw ire from the Aggie Nation. But there are some people who believe, partly because Bobby Petrino, he's coached a little offensive football, I'll be watching with great interest to see how that psychosis between Jimbo himself, an offensive mind of repute, how that works. Does he really delegate? And has Bobby Petrino modernized his offense to what we're doing now with tempo and RPOs? But Connor Wegman, some people believe he's at least in the top 5 or 6 returning. So he at least deserves a mention as one to keep an eye on.
Let me say this too. Just got a listener, Tom Mildrum, another one. He's living in Birmingham now. I called Tom the All-American guy.
I know Tom.
I love him. He and Sean were, in the same pledge class. But another shout out he's from Clayton, Alabama, which is in Barber County. Also from Eufaula and listening, Johnny Haygood. Dr. Haygood was the dentist that everybody went to in Eufaula. And I'll be fishing here pretty soon with Johnny and the Alabama gang and having a lot of fun. But Eufaula is one of the prettiest towns when you come up 431 from going to the beach. Beautiful homes there, Lake Eufaula, the Bass Museum or whatever but they've got gators there. I want to add that. But I want to say to all 3 of y'all, I don't know Paul Feinbaum. I've met him a couple of times. I think he's missing out. He needs to be the new David Letterman. Put him on, let him do his show. Do it every once. Put him on at night. The guy he went to Christian Brothers High School, my alma mater, for first 2 years. Then he finished at White Station where my kids finished. But he can just look people straight in the face and keep that poker face without laughing. As my dad is 94, watches his show every day. He goes, "Oh, what's the deal with this Squirrel and Jim and Larry?" I'm like, I talked to Phyllis off the air several times before she died. That was a sweet lady. If you didn't know her, you'd never. God, she was a sweet lady. Larry from Shelby. He is a very nice guy. And a lot of these people, but David Letterman, we didn't go to bed growing up till we watched, David Letterman.
Yeah, Rob, can I jump in on one before I forget about it? I want to say something. It's about my late wife, and it pertains to what we're talking about. She talked to anybody and everybody, and she could become friends with somebody in a second. And it was amazing, even right down to the day before she died. She talked about being in an infusion center and a guy coming in there all bent over in a wheelchair and this woman pushing him. And she said that he was really having a bad day. And she spoke to him and he said he was complaining and grumbling. And she said, let me tell you something. And Joni would put her finger in your face. Let me tell you something. You need to be thankful for that woman pushing you in that wheelchair. That's what you got to be thankful for today. You remember that. And he said something whenever she walked out that day. He said to her, "You're funny." And Joni she had the courage to ask the obvious question that we were afraid to ask, and she talked to so many people, the little people that loved her. I mean, I had my yard man come to the door last week, and an African American gentleman. I didn't know him that well. We only had him about a year. He was crying. His name was John. He said she was a great lady. Said she talked to me about God all the time. I didn't know that. And she's touched people like that. One woman, she said, she taught me 53 years ago when we worked together how to put my makeup on. Little girl from Citra and my wife from North Miami said, "This is what you do, lipstick. Always put your face on." She said, for 53 years, when I went out of the house every day, I heard her tell me that, put your face on. So you asked her, I said, "How do you do this?" She said, "I find out something about them they're interested in and talk to them about that." Masterful.
Yeah, it is. And just
beautiful.
What a legacy.
I've watched Kevin. I've watched you on Paul Feinbaum. I've watched you, Buddy. That's how I found out about Buddy. And then Kevin always watched you. And then I ran into you at Media Days a couple of years ago. But both of y'all, and Doug's the same way. You watch the great interviewers. I mean, Letterman, you remember one of the great characters he had, Brother Theodore? "Dave, you must understand me." Brother Theodore was out of his mind. He was brilliant. He was a physicist or something, but he would just engage them and let them go. All three of y'all, what I love about being on this show, and Dan Matthews, who's the executive producer over in Atlanta with Chuck Oliver Show and Chuck and Chernoff on 680 The Fan, he said, I don't mean to be so hard on you, Rob, but I mean, he's critical. If you miss a break by a second, he'll text you and say something. I go, I need it. Having you on board is like having Chris Kyle, American Sniper, in the deer stand with you. Okay. I'll take criticism and coaching any day. And when all of y'all are on here, because Doug doesn't like me to say this, but he's a great writer. The best guests you will ever have on a show, it's not even close, are the writers, because y'all think about what you're saying because you've already written it. Am I right, or y'all agree?
Sometimes you make it up as you go along, and it turns out right.
Right. Sometimes you get lucky, buddy. Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The only thing I'd say, Rob, is sometimes the people I enjoy listening to or watching the most are funny as hell. And they're not that. The people that are real comedians and have comedic timing aren't necessarily always great writers. So I kind of like both of those.
Hey, the great Beano Cook, who was one of the funniest human beings in the face of the earth. I hired him to be a sports writer in St. Petersburg. And it was a great noble project. He was miserable. He couldn't write like he talked. He was funny all the time. He had some great lines, but it's right. You can't say because you talk funny, you're going to write funny.
Are we out of time, Rob?
Just about, but Beano Cook came to the Touchdown Club one time. We talked to him. I think it was from Pittsburgh or somewhere. And he goes, I was up there listening to you guys talking. He goes, I'm Pennsylvania. You go in a bar in Pittsburgh or Aliquippa or Monongahela Valley and say Penn State sucks or whatever. People might look at you and kind of funny. He goes, you go down there in Alabama and, slap out, or Utah or Pine Level and say Auburn sucks or Alabama. He goes, you may be, doing the dirt nap. And I'm like, but he wasn't, we drank with him till about 1:30 or 2 in the morning. That guy could tell a story, man. He was off the chart. Buddy, you hired Rick Riley. I can't say it enough times, man. Every time you're on this show, it's like I get to go to grad school. And Doug, you know how much fun this is, but this is a lot of fun. We're about out of time, buddy.
Can I give you one Beano Cook line real fast?
Yeah.
When the hostages came home, and my wife was there at the parade and all that stuff. And one of the things they gave him was lifetime pass to baseball. Beano was not a baseball fan. His line was, haven't they suffered enough?
And that was before the pitch count clock, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Holy cow. Well, they could have had to do in-home visits with Mildred. Wow.
Hey,
my
Rob,
calculations, Mildred's 103 now, by the way. Happy birthday, Mildred.
Rob, for a future show, and I'm going to encourage the great Scarbo to write about this. I bet he will. But I think the NIL is mature. It matures this year, maybe next year. And what I'm watching with interest, if A&M, as rumored, gets 5-star Cam Coleman wide receiver for just over 7 figures, I can't prove that. That's a rumor. and they weren't even being mentioned until he announced the other day. If you see more and more of that, if that action to get a recruit who hasn't played a down of football, what other action and dominoes does it cause for coaching staffs with existing roster? That becomes a hell of a lot of money, or some angry, chaotic feelings when you're trying to build a team. Am I right?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Guys, everybody let people know how they can follow you. I'll start with you, buddy. Great show, as always. Most often we see the face of Christ, and the least among us. Don't ever miss an opportunity to help the people who help you and make a positive difference and let people know they matter. What you said about your wife, Joni, absolutely solid gold, man. Engage people. Let them know that you care. Let them know they matter. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. We're on back on the regular schedule next week, 9:00 on Monday through Thursday. We go to GatorBait.com, GatorBaitMedia.com. Sign up for our GatorBait stuff. It's with Franz Beard and a bunch of other writers. If you're a Gator fan, you won't want to miss it.
All right, Kevin?
Yeah, sign up for my new newsletter. Go to my Twitter at Kevin Scarbinsky, or go to al.com/sports, and you can sign up at either location. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you will also get my Sunday column in the Birmingham Lede. So that's the best way to get my stuff. So I hope people will check it out.
You ought to call it the Great Scarbo.
Scarbo knows.
No, Scarbo knows. Scarbo knows what he doesn't know.
Yeah. Look, we'll be back on with you Monday. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Got a great lineup. Doug, closing comments, and we'll take it out of here.
No, prayers for my twin daughter, Lauren, who should welcome either Jack or Carlisle into the world tomorrow or Monday at the latest. So great. Exciting times.
All right. We are out of here, man. Thanks so much for listening and watching. And hello, Barber County, Alabama, our town and county of the day. We're out of here.